Hello, everyone. Welcome to Citizens Conversations. I just want to give a quick reminder that early voting starts on October 16th and it runs through November 3rd. And also, Election Day is on November 7th. We'd like to welcome you all here. And the other thing I just wanted to let you know real quick is that the purpose of this forum is to have a comfortable conversation with the candidate. And so, with that, I'm just going to turn it over to the chairperson of Citizens Conversations, Miss Yoshina Colbert Bradford. Yoshina?
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Tonight, I'm just going to go over a few ground rules before I get started and introduce our candidate tonight. House rule number 1, be respectful. Number 2, all citizens, please remain on mute until we recognize you and unmute. Number 4, I myself, the moderator, I'm going to introduce how we will flow tonight, the candidate. I'll briefly do an introduction, and the candidate will have 2 minutes to go over their platform or any other information they'd like to give and share with you. And lastly, after the candidate has already given their platform, myself and the host, Ron Booth, will start off by asking a few questions, and the floor is all yours. You're able to answer all of the questions that you like, that your heart desires, to the candidates that we have tonight. And we did it this way to make sure each candidate has their own platform. This is their show, and this is their time to shine. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce tonight Dr. Catherine Foster Rowell. She is currently our councilwoman for District 1 of the city of South Fulton, and has served as the first mayor pro tem in the city of South Fulton. Since taking office 6 years ago, she has authored and passed over 75 pieces of legislation and earned 3 Georgia Municipal Association professional development certificates. She has also worked with nonprofits for over 15 plus years and has experience with senior program director with Enterprise Communities Partners, Bronner Group, and Maximus consulting firms. She has also volunteered with Just a Few, National Forums for Black Public Administrators, National Coalition of 100 Black Women Metropolitan Atlanta Chapter, National Church Residents Southeast Advisory Board, and Cascade Business Merchants Association Advisory Board members. This is just to name a few. She is definitely a busy lady. Serving city council, her focus has always been on financial transparency, sponsoring the open checkbook legislation, and the transparency and contracting ordinances. And also, she has also authored a number of environmental pieces of legislation to regulate transfer stations, increase recent legislation initiatives that have focused on flood management, planning, and insurance. With this resume, we can see why she has served City of South Fulton for so many years. With further ado, I'm going to introduce to you tonight, Councilwoman Dr. Catherine Foster Rowell. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for that warm introduction. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. And so I guess I want to start off by highlighting, or not focusing so much on what you shared, but one of the things I remember when I first took office and I started knocking on doors that I heard from residents was a desire to make sure we brought quality economic development to the district. As a 25 plus year resident of the area for a very long time, we continue to be a food desert, limited commercial development beyond the Cascade corridor. Even though we had a small node at Sandtown Crossing, there was a desire to bring restaurants, retail, and a grocery store, an effort that had been underway for at least a couple decades through the Sandtown Community Association and various group efforts. So that's kind of what I've went to work on pretty much from day one, and we've yielded great success. For District 1 in particular, We now also encompass food and industrial. That wasn't originally the case when we first became a city. And so there's been a lot of effort to clean up the corridor. It's pretty noticeable, I'm sure you can see, thanks in part to the hard work of our police department and efforts that are currently underway with the Development Authority of Fulton County to address some of the most distressed properties along that corridor. So I'm looking forward to having again, a candid conversation. So I'm ready.
Well, we're excited. We're glad that you're ready. And me and Ron will fire off the first questions just to get everybody warmed up. And my first question would be, we all love City of South Fulton. So what are some of the good things and bad things that you can say? Give me a few of the good things that you like about City of South Fulton. And what are some things that you feel that may not have made us look so good, or what was the bad?
Okay. The plus, I think we have a very strong arts community in our city. The Southwest Arts Center is really nationally known for the productions that it puts on. When it transferred to the city, we've continued to provide quality programming out of the Southwest Arts Center, and that's been pretty seamless. In addition, I think one of the untold stories is when we talk about Sandtown Crossing in particular, many of the business owners at Sandtown Crossing actually live in our city. I think that's a major, major plus. So if we look at the Gaucher's Tapas restaurant, if we look at the Subway, if we look at Sandtown Pub, the Allstate, these are all residents of our city who, they saw the potential, they know the opportunity is there, and they put their money where their mouth is and started a business in our community, in our emerging young city. So I think that's a major plus. In addition, the addition of food and industrial to our city became a huge revenue source for the city. It really kind of rebalanced our portfolio in terms of income. I think most people know the feasibility study that was done on our city, of course, said we could sustain ourselves without food and industrial. But with the addition, as you've seen, the city is food and industrial has been with us a couple of years now. We began to see, not just, maintaining, but we began to see a surplus between that and the increased valuations across the board. It gives us a city that's, really balanced, that now we have commercial, industrial, and residential development, and any healthy city is going to have all components. As it relates to areas for improvement, I think it's no secret. I think we could improve on our general decorum in our meetings. I actually sponsor legislation to address that. Looking forward to the day when it will actually be implemented. I will say that because the way the ordinance is written, based on my experience with a number of nonprofit boards, usually it's your presiding officer who keeps the order. And so that ordinance was written in that way that the mayor would be able to maintain the decorum of the meeting. And so I think that's an area for improvement. In addition, I just think we need to focus more on educating our constituents. Communication is key. I really have strived from day one to try to keep my constituents informed with quarterly town meetings, weekly newsletters, and the like. But I think just the basic operations of government, we can do some more education. I know we did South Fulton University, but we need to kind of put that on steroids, in my opinion, because I think a lot of the things that people don't understand is because they don't understand, basic government operations.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to say, excuse me, I have my cup. So this is dinner time. So we're going to make it very relaxed. So people, you all make sure you all have your cup, your juice, or whatever it is. I am finished with my questions right now. I'm going to lean the floor to Ron to ask his questions, and then we will literally open the floor to the citizens.
Well, thank you, Yashina. Well, the first thing I wanted to do, Dr. Rowell, is compliment you on your background. It's an absolutely outstanding background. It looks good. And even your colors are matching. So I just wanted to say that. Couldn't help but notice. Secondly, I wanted to remind everyone on the call that all you have to do is raise your electronic hand, and then we'll call on you and you can go ahead and ask your question. So my question to you, Dr. Rowell, as you know, we met a while back at the National Forum for Black Public Administrators. And I was wondering if you have created or were thinking about creating anything of that nature for South Fulton, City of South Fulton, or if anyone in government at the City of South Fulton is participating with NFBPA.
Thank you for that question. So the NFBPA is a metro chapter which covers multiple cities. As you said, we met probably, maybe is it 20 years? I don't know how long ago we first met. But you know, having been the president of that chapter when we host a national forum, it is key because you have public administration professionals from all over the country that you can tap to support our city. So early on, and this goes back to Odie Donald, when he was the city manager, we actually hosted the Eli program for about 3 years in our city. Under our last city manager, not so much. She wasn't familiar with or had no affiliation with the organization. So it was a bit more challenging. And then, you know, at the beginning of her tenure, you know, she was trying to get her feet wet. I was hoping that we could kind of get there. We never quite did. But one of the key things I think that was really key, the former, like I said, our first city manager really encouraged our members to become involved with NFBPA, take advantage of the training opportunities and the leadership development opportunities. And so I hope at some point we will get back to that, but again, not as much in the last couple of years. And I'm hoping as things settle with our new city manager, because she is familiar with the organization, because it's a wealth of talent in that organization that can be tapped to, you know, advance our city. So I'm very optimistic that hopefully we could get there.
Thank you for that response. And again, we're opening it up. If you're too shy to ask a question, you could type it in the chat. Yashina?
All right, I was just going to say that it looks like if some people are not tech savvy, because I've been there before, please make sure that if you just unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask your question if you can't find the hand, and that is okay too. So we'll keep the dialogue going until someone has a question to ask. And my next question for you, since you already have experience, you're already with the city, and I think I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again. Even with the city manager, the new city manager that we have now currently, what is the difference? What are the pros and cons of the new city manager versus the old city manager? Why was that a need to get rid of our old city manager?
Well, I think it was mutually agreed upon to depart. It was a mutual decision. So I'll say that first. The second part is I don't really like to compare professionals. I think they both have something they brought to the table on different leadership styles, right? One thing I do like about the current city manager is she has big city experience, and I think that's really, really important. I don't think there's a true appreciation for the fact that when we started this journey, we were building an organization and flying at the same time. Not many people will ever have that kind of experience. And so lifting up a large city government at the beginning, while you're also trying to put the infrastructure in place, has been challenging at times. And I don't think that's for every city manager or even, you know, every department head. You know, most people who served in the public sector, they probably came into an organization where everything was kind of in place and maybe they're fine tuning and tweaking. This was a project for any director to come in. You had to start from the ground up, from hiring to putting your operational procedures in place. And I think that's also been one of our challenges, because as we've experienced staff turnover, like many cities, it has been more challenging for us because, you know, not having all of that infrastructure in place as it should be has been a challenge, because you get a new person in, they bring in, you know, whatever their experience is. And I think until that kind of dust settles a little bit, and we line up all our SOPs across departments, we'll continue to have some of those challenges. So that's something that I've really talked to the city manager about in terms of the real need to make sure we have plans. Transition and turnover, that's commonplace. But what do we have in place to make sure that the impact to services and the quality of services we provide to the city's citizens aren't negatively impacted? So I think that's a real challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, and then of course, what's been on every citizen's mind, the trash service. That has been a big doozy. I think one of the major complaint was the annual pay. What has the city done as far as rectifying that or trying to come up with solutions, especially for those who are elderly, who probably can't come up with the amount for an annual fee for the trash service?
So the council unanimously supported the rollout of a sanitation assistance program, solid waste assistance program, SWAP, and over 600 households have applied for it. So we recognize that might be a challenge for some, and the city council allocated funding for it. So I think that's key, but I also don't want it to be missed that in a city of our size, we're talking now, our numbers are saying we are right at 111,000 residents. It was critically important that we put a solid waste program in place. We started off trying to balance the interests and desires of the community. This is, I think, our second or third time around. I can't quite remember that we tried to roll it out. And we listened to the citizens and tried to keep the model as we had it previously. Just you sign up for your service, you pick your provider. The reality is we had a hardcore group that they just wouldn't sign up. And in conjunction with that, the amount of money the city was spending on illegal dumping, and I'm not just talking about the big stuff that might, come from maybe somebody renovating their houses. I'm sure you've seen where you'll see bags just randomly all over the place in our city. That was pretty common. It's gotten a lot better. It shouldn't even really be an issue now. I'm sure we're gonna have some, but the scale of it has already subsided somewhat. And we expect that will continue to improve because everybody has a can now. We just, we're a big city. We're the fourth largest city in the state, and we have to act like that.
Okay, very well. And let me see if Ron, now let me say this to the citizen. Every time I talk to a citizen, they're on Nextdoor, they're on every platform, and they want to talk to the candidates, so they have questions. So that's why we have this forum. Please raise your hand or just unmute yourself to ask your question. This is your time to shine. Your councilwoman is here. The candidates are here. Please allow yourself that time to have a great conversation and interact with them now. Ron, did you have a question?
I do have a question, and then there's one in the chat also that I'll ask.
Okay.
The question I was going to ask, Dr. Rowell, if you had an unlimited checkbook and you had the full support of the city council, the entire council, and the mayor, what are the two major things that you would fix first in the city of South Fulton?
I would start with doing some investment in our public infrastructure, particularly around the areas we've identified for the non-economic development nodes. I say that because District 1, it's no secret, our node probably, it took off first. And in part, that was due to the fact that it was partially there already, right? So in 2020, the city of South Fulton adopted an economic development plan and pretty much said there would be 9 areas where we would kind of focus on live, work, play, so that people can get basic services, grocery stores, pharmacy, a place to eat, those kind of basic service, cleaners, those kind of things. And Sandtown Crossing was already there. So, we went to work to try to finish the build out of that commercial node, which, it had pretty much been dormant for 15 years, maybe. We had the first phase come in, and then there was some work with the landowner who has owned it for, 20+ years to attract publics to the site. And what he did was he basically took all the data from the building permits that we had in the queue to say, hey, you don't see it now, but growth is coming. You don't want to miss this opportunity, because Publix was one of the first people that came to the South Side grocery stores, the one on Cascade, which he actually owned that commercial node as well, that plaza. And so he had a relationship. So we started there and then started trying to build that out. I say that because it took off. Publix is a brand that people are attracted to and want to come and set up business next to. As we learned from that experience, I think it's going to be really important that for the other nodes, not all of them, are at the same place, that we really think about that, moving in advance of the development on some of the roads. And that takes time. The city did adopt a transportation plan, so I would accelerate some of the investment in that. Second, and the council's already done this, very excited that this year we have appropriated, well, we haven't adopted the budget yet, but put money aside to begin a construction of our public safety facilities. So fire, police, and courthouse. For the city, the majority of our employees sit in two departments, the fire department and the police department. That's almost any city in America. And so if we can get their space together in terms of what they're operating out, it will give us a more true picture of what our administrative offices need to look like for the city. Because people keep saying, oh, we need to focus on building a city hall. Most cities that were formed, Sandy Springs, they were so far down the line before they even built their city hall. So we're actually, to me, ahead of the game in this space. But the administrative footprint will be a lot smaller because we're taking the two biggest departments in our city and making sure that they're, have suitable administrative offices. And so even in the town center, you're not going to have your fire department with your fire engines and equipment. It'll be those outward facing city departments that, stop in City Hall, might get a permit, those kind of things. So I would focus on those things. I think we have a good plan. We've been following the plan, and we just need to be steadfast on that. It's on some of the infrastructure around that.
We have okay. Are you going to get the question in the chat?
Yeah, I was going to go ahead and get that one. See, you answered one of them already. So, Dr. Rowell, the question in the chat is, I understand that some residents were approved for SWAP. I believe that's Solid Waste Assistance Program.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. What happens if their mortgage services pay the solid waste bill and they have already been awarded SWAP assistance? Is the question.
I honestly cannot speak to that because that's a little out of my lane. But Gordon Burkett is our solid waste provider. They actually operationalize the program. They could speak to that, how that would be handled. I just know, again, how we get information from the staff that they, that is 600 people, 600 households that will be served. So I'm sure they can make some kind of arrangements. I know a lot of times people use, their funding. They probably can submit the bill to their mortgage company if they have funds in the escrow account.
No,
but I think they won't even get a bill, if I'm not mistaken. If I recall, but I think those people who qualified, they'll net out their zero out their bill, if you will.
Okay.
Hey, did you have some more comments, Yoshina, or you want me to ask?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, the next question, Dr. Rowell. What is your platform for the city of South Fulton? Comes from my iPad, whoever that is.
Okay.
If you don't mind, before you speak, if you don't mind, I would just ask if those who are coming on, we would like for you to say your question or at least say your name so we'll know who you are. That's
okay,
all.
that was me. I asked that question. I'm Lucretia Turner. I live on Lot Loma.
Okay.
Thank you. So, couple priorities. The redevelopment of Fulton Industrial is a priority. If you've traveled the boulevard, there has been a lot of progress made in that area, but we're not where we need to be. I want to thank the Food and Industrial CID. They've done a marvelous job. In fact, we probably have some of the best landscaping in Metro Atlanta on Food and Industrial. One of the things that happened during the pandemic is the Development Authority of Fulton County acquired some of the most blighted properties on Food and Industrial. And so you see those are gated off or fenced off. You're talking about the Valero, the old McDonald's, the hotels. We only have one hotel that remains on Food and Industrial. And that has also curbed a lot of that less desirable activity and traffic that was occurring on Food and Industrial. And so one of the things that's slated to happen is the Development Authority is going to focus on redevelopment. They have began to do research on what other industrial areas around the country have been able to attract to change the whole image of the area. I think that's exciting. In addition, you have a work group that I participated in. It took us about a year. We did a freight cluster study. You can find these documents on the CID's website, where we're going to look at traffic improvements all along Food and Industrial, sidewalks, autonomous vehicles to get workers, off of the off street. So while you have transit coming partially down Food and Industrial, it doesn't come all the way. And many employees you see walking, trying to get to their jobs. And we've had safety issues along the corridor because of that. I think these autonomous vehicles are a great solution to figure out how we keep people safe, improve the lighting in that area. As it relates to economic development, we've done quite a few projects during my tenure on council to kind of give a facelift to Cascade. We got some more work to do. For those who don't know, I have a good relationship with Marcy Overstreet, who is adjacent to me on the City of Atlanta side. At Cascade, inside the perimeter, we have a couple projects coming online. If you're not aware, there will be an Aldi's grocery store on Cascade across from Kroger. Currently, you see Raw Design constructing its new showroom. Raw Design has been in the area for a long time, a small business who provides great furniture and design service. If you're not aware of it, and were you asking the question? Are you a witness to that?
I want to stop you before you keep going.
Okay.
So in your question, in your statement, you just stated there's an Aldi's coming on Cascade across from Kroger. I'm trying to figure in my mind picture, where would that be across from Kroger?
So where Raw Design is currently located, the gas station, it's that will no longer be there.
So the gas station is gone too?
Yeah,
okay.
Both of them. And his new showroom that is under construction, he'll go into a new showroom that's currently under construction. So if you see the dirt turn, that's what's being constructed there right now.
Okay.
And then across the street, across from Bank of America, we have a Quick Trip coming. So it will only be one gas station on that side.
Okay. Now I'm trying to be, so across from Bank of America, is this where that empty lot has been for years?
For 30, 40 years, yes.
Okay. So it'll be a Quick Trip right there. And then you're saying right across from that, we will have an Aldi's. That's
correct.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to get you before you kept going. That's important for the citizens to know.
Yeah. So, the City of Atlanta and City of South Fulton Public Works Department have been working on that and planning for traffic around these projects. But again, it's going to change the face of Cascade and give it it's going to give it a fresh coat of lipstick, I'll say. In addition, there are a couple of things that are also in play as it relates to the Cascade corridor. As you know, we have had a cleaners in a warehouse that is on Utoy Drive across from Murray Brothers. Those will come down and you'll have a new smaller footprint plaza. all of these things will have to comply with the Cascade overlay. So, mostly everything that's been built, after the overlays is brick. So
Yeah,
again,
I remember that where it's next to that Shell gas station.
behind the Shell
Yeah,
gas
okay.
station.
Now that's a small property. So
Yeah, it
I
is.
guess my question, if it's gonna be a plaza, how are we gonna do parking?
It has to meet the parking requirements. It's not as small as you think, because that warehouse actually takes up a lot of space. We probably don't pay attention because it's been vacant for some time, and the cleaners has been on the brownfield list for a long time. So it's good that property is being cleaned up. And so again, that's really one of the things that's recently happened. I think we approved that maybe about 5 or 6 months ago. So you'll begin to see some activity there. And so when you see it, at least you'll know what's occurring. And then recently we got an application in to the city. This doesn't require any rezoning because it's already zoned commercial, where I'll say there is somebody looking at that site across from Chick-fil-A. That white gas station, convenience store. We're excited that because it would be a new structure on that. And again, it would comply with the overlay. So that's in place. And that's basically, for the most part, transforms the look of Cascade and gives it a fresh new look. So I think all of those things are exciting. Looking forward to continued progress and beautification of the area. I've been cleaning up in that corridor even before I got elected to make sure that we could attract quality commercial. A lot of good work had been done from citizens who advocated for things along the Cascade corridor, but not as much recently. And so I think we're kind of addressing that. And again, one of the things that is in the proposed budget is beautification of the exit ramps. I'm looking forward to that. I want them to look as good as the ones on Foot and Industrial, so that when you come off Cascade, you know you're on the Cascade corridor.
Well, I guess that leads me into a couple of questions. Since I am a native of Atlanta, I've been here for all my life, years. Just to kind of ask a few questions of things that have already been done. And maybe you could probably say if you agree or probably disagree with it. Now, one of the questions I have is real estate. That's my background. So I'm always wondering, how can we protect our property values here? And I don't see how we're really protecting or increasing our values here. We have several apartment complexes going up. Have no problem with apartment complexes. I just want to make sure that they're going to continue to increase our property values, increase the identity of our neighborhoods, and also increase the amenity that we receive over in our neighborhoods. A lot of the merchants, businesses, I've done several studies with schools and college mates, that when we look at a lot of businesses that come to the different areas, they do their studies first, and they look at the makeup, they look at the average amount of salaries that people make, the income for the households. And that's what determines whether or not we'll get a Trader Joe's or we'll get a Sprouts. And I am one who I shop outside of my neighborhood all the time, actually, because there are stores that I partake or like more than I would. I know we have Publix, that's great. But it would be nice if we can expand to a Sprouts, or we can expand to, Trader Joe's. How can we be able to get the equity and also economically compete if we continue to have apartment complexes coming, or we're building homes around us, or subdivisions less than 500,000?
First of all, I want to do a correction. We have many developments in District 1 in particular. You can barely find anything for 500,000 in District 1. So if you look at in the pandemic, before the pandemic, of course, we saw the build out of Eden Pines subdivision. It had already been approved, and one of those projects that didn't move forward after the market crashed in 2008. We actually had a lot of that in the area. It got built out. Wind Creek got built out. And none of those, I mean, most of those houses, if you look them up, they're right under 500,000. Now those prices are way beyond that. In terms of, if you look at what's going on in LeGrand, which is off Enid, which is a gated community, you're talking 600,000-700,000. We had a house on Elva Drive sale for like $1.9 million. So I look at the data on a regular basis. I think these things are what's driving the attraction to the area. I know that for a fact. One of the things I did do is I got an economic development certification since I've been in office, because I wanted to understand what developers look at when they're trying to come to an area. And while income is definitely important, one of the things people don't realize, they go where there's traffic. For us, we think it's a problem. They want to make sure that people are stopping in their retail establishments and spending money. There is nowhere you can go in Metro Atlanta that has any kind of quality retail that doesn't have multifamily or density around it. Roswell Road, Camp Creek Marketplace, that's an area that I think we have to continue to educate the public about. And I think the council was spot on and intentional when we identified those nodes. We didn't want it everywhere, but we knew we had to have that. If not, we're taking the money out of our city and spending it elsewhere. And so I feel very good about what I've seen in the area in terms of rising values. I know for the longest, until we became a city, our values were flat for a very long time. That has changed since we've been a city. And I don't think anybody can deny that.
No, it definitely has. It's changed in every market. And I can honestly say we do have to look at what are the effects of it. I know COVID had a huge impact on that as far as the real estate market. But I don't want us to get lost and say, hey, everybody's property values went up. That's because people are overpaying. So now we're trying to, level back out. But I would still like to see our home values. Yes, we do have some good neighborhoods or some great neighborhoods in District 1. I would like to continue to see that and have some great build outs. And I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you one more question too. Ron, do you have a question?
I do. There's actually one that was sent DM to me.
Okay.
Dr. Rowell, this person is saying there's a detention pond across from the roundabout. I assume that's the roundabout in District 1 off of Campbellton. And they're saying what plans are in place to ensure it's maintained, the detention pond there by the roundabout?
Great question. I've been in contact with our District 7 representative. The detention pond is a state detention pond. And so I've asked Ruben McCullough to come up with some kind of schedule for maintenance on it, or to let us know what that maintenance schedule is. You'll actually probably see that service within the next 2 to 3 weeks, because that's already been in play. Another thing that's around that very same detention pond, originally, the community had requested that the fencing be black so it's not so obvious. And so I know he is working on that as we speak. But it is a GDOT, a state detention pond.
Okay, and there's one more question in the chat. I think it's related to the earlier question. Well, it looks like Yoshina just answered in the chat. Clark wants to know, will the solid waste assistance program be yearly? Will it be, I guess, renewed yearly?
Right now, even with our budget, we look at these opportunities within a 12-month window. As originally envisioned, it was supposed to just be this one time to give people the opportunity who really, it was a hardship, that now you would be prepared and understand what that expense would be for next year. But it's not to say that the council couldn't possibly consider some additional assistance, but we haven't discussed that at all as a body.
Okay. And Yoshina, did you have something? And if you did, before you do, I just wanted to remind everyone, especially those of you that are in District 1, if you would, here's your sitting councilwoman running for re-election. Go ahead and ask her your questions, respectfully, of course, but go ahead and ask them. And Clark, I see you have your hand up, so we're going to ask you to unmute, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. this same question deals with the solid waste bill. Why the elderly or the elders who don't pay property taxes required to pay the solid waste bill?
Well, I kind of talked about it earlier. We all generate trash. I know people will say that they don't, but we do. This service that we're providing, most people, like I said, most people were receiving, had some kind of trash service in place previously. And so this effort was in response to a couple things. We were getting across the board a lot of complaints, particularly for people who had moved to the area more recently, that they were being charged kind of exorbitant rates for solid waste. I had somebody say they were paying, $125 a quarter. I mean, the rates were all over the place. They weren't uniform. And so this was an attempt, one, to address, like I said, making sure we had some consistency in pricing. People would call us, the council, and want us to intervene. We had absolutely no leverage because the relationship was with the homeowner and whoever that solid waste provider was. Like, we had absolutely no leverage. This changed that. That's why we were able to bring the price down. If you look at this, and you can check around the metro area, this is some of the lowest rates in the metro area. Everybody generates trash. We can't, as a government, just pick and choose who can get the service. Everybody has to have the same rollout. But again, one of the things we did to try to mitigate that was to launch the swap program. So, to diminish the impact. And we're going to watch it. This is the first year. So we'll look at it. And if we find we need to do something else, that's something that the council can take up in the future.
When you get an opportunity, if you could is there a way you could put it in the chat, I guess, for them to get the information or be allowed to go into the program? Is there a link?
So the date for the swap has passed. I have, for those who get my newsletter, I've included that information, and the city also rolls that information out. I tell people, please don't let Nextdoor be your source of information. Go to the city's website and get information. There's a whole page on the solid waste management program, and they're periodically updating again as we refine the program. And one of the things I do want people to know, the city is bringing Merck Miles back online. I know it's a lot of chatter about that, but one of the things we did do with this program, which was previously not the case with your solid waste, that in our area, in District 1 and 2, the first Monday of every month, you can put bulk items at the curb. But now we thought that would help as we were working to bring Merck Miles back online, right? But we found out we have a lot of more people who recycle, which is why you saw different events held around the city. People, make the comments, oh, we're operating like we're 7 different cities. We're really trying to be convenient because, our city is large. We're, almost 100, roughly 100 square miles. And so, I think as Councilman Sebastian always talks about, for him to come to City Hall, you're talking about a 35 to 40-minute drive. So we wanted to have these pop-up events until we bring Merck Miles online, where it was closer to where people live and they didn't have to, go all across town to bring whatever they needed to bring for our bulk days. And so if we need to continue to do those until Merck Miles is online, but we anticipate, November, roughly. That's what the solid waste coordinator has shared with me, that they're looking at November. The RFP closes on it, I think, on tomorrow, the 21st of September. So
okay,
we're excited to bring that back. We hear the constituents loud and clear on that.
All right, thank you. We had one question in the chat, and then we're going to go to, looks like Brenda had her hand up, and then Clark. Looks like the detention ponds in the neighborhood. So I know before we had a lot of unincorporated parts. So Fulton County took care of the detention ponds and all of the water sources that we had here, the creeks. So how does the city of South Fulton plan to begin to take that take on that responsibility.
So let me be clear. This is when you get into legal stuff right here. So Fulton County still maintains those easement agreements. And it's not all subdivisions, detention ponds across the city. I think there were 32 of them. Other than that, most HOAs are responsible for their detention ponds. That's why they collect your HOA dues. That's one of the things they're supposed to be doing. Now, as it relates to a particular community, I could tell you, we could check the list and see if it's one of the 32. But if we're talking about 32 subdivisions, I think we have well over 700. Last I checked, it may be way beyond that now, subdivisions, but that responsibility lies with your HOA. And that's one of the things they collect the funds for, to maintain your detention ponds. I live in a community. Our HOA is responsible, and we had some of the same challenges. I will tell you, once you get them cleared out, you want to get them on at least a twice a year cleaning or maintenance schedule, so they don't get out of hand, because if not, they become very, very expensive. In the thousands of dollars. So I just will share with you. So I don't know if if it's one of the 32, I think there's the opportunity to speak with your Fulton County commissioners, because the city of South Fulton we're not named on any of those detention ponds. It's the county with the builders. And I've shared that with those who've reached out. If you're in District 1, we're kind of split. We have, I guess I'll say we're fortunate. We have 2 commissioners who serve on the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, and then you have a chair. So Commissioner Khadijah Abdul Rahman, and Marvin Arrington now has moved more into District 1. He was primarily in, Cliftondale area, but he does have a part of District 1 now. And our chairman. And I think this is something that as people advocate with us for things, that they need to have that same level of advocacy at the county level.
All right. Brenda Bethune-Colbert.
Okay. My question was about the retention pond, and she answered that, so I'm good.
Okay. And I think that probably goes to the older communities that don't have even though I know I could say this for Loch Lomond, we have an HOA, but it's not a governing HOA, if that makes sense. So it will probably be
It's informal, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And I've met many times. I know there's 2 different HOAs in the Loch Lomond community, and I've been fortunate to work with them on some of the issues that they've raised. In fact, I think just not far down on Loch Lomond, Loch Lomond, we were able to do the demolition of a blighted house that had been there for a long time. So we're going to continue that level of communication with the HOAs. It's been helpful, I think, on both sides.
Thank you. Clark?
Okay. One more question. The demolition that you were talking about in Loch Lomond, they still have a dumpster that needs to be removed from that demolition site, but the dumpster people won't remove it because they haven't been paid by the city.
Well, so, thank you for that. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. I'll assure you I'll look into that and get it taken care of.
It's right 2 doors down from where we live.
I know exactly. I was out there when they did it, but I'll get
the address and put it in the we'll send it to you. We'll get it to you. Let me write it down.
I'll know the address.
Okay.
I'll get it taken care of.
Dumpster.
Unfortunately, some of that happened. We had changes in our finance department, and we had the city manager had to staff up quickly. I think most of y'all kind of probably saw some of that happening in the meeting. I know they have worked through a lot of that, but there may be some things out there like that. So thanks for bringing that to my attention, and we'll get it taken care of.
All right, Clark, I'm sorry for the delay.
It's okay. I'm going to go back to my previous question, because I am an advocate for the seniors. And you mentioned that everybody has trash, but in some communities, the elderly neighbors who are working full time will take their trash. So a lot of them don't have or did not have a trash bill, and their salary is not some salaries are not capable of paying the 233 a year based on that. And once again, why is it required for them? If they don't pay property tax, why should they have to pay a solid waste bill?
Okay, now I think that's a great question. I know she's proposed it before, and maybe just so we can kind of, and I know this is the first year you all are rolling everything out. So maybe this is a great opportunity to look at this as the issue and maybe further look at a solution. I do know we do have some seniors in Loch Lomond. They only have maybe one bag of trash.
Absolutely.
Like my neighbor, he will put his trash in my trash can. So, I mean, with those scenarios, it may not be a lot, but I do understand where Mrs. Clark? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Clark is coming from. So maybe we may not have a solution now, but I'll let you speak.
Right.
But does that make sense, Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Okay.
And as I said, we'd be open to have further conversation. Like I said, the council as a body, again, we're just rolling the program out. And like I said, I know that the number's over 600. I think only a couple didn't qualify that applied. I think it was less than 20, if I recall the number. They reported it at our last meeting. But this is something we may have to look at going forward. So thanks for sharing. And again, this is the first year, so we can continue to refine the program as needed. So thanks for sharing.
Okay, and it looks like someone else said they had the same issue. So what I'll do once we wrap up with you, because we do want to end on time to respect everyone's time, we have exactly 9 minutes. So we'll probably roll off 2 more questions if you don't mind. Answer those really quickly, and then we'll let you go in and finish up for us.
Okay.
I wrote down a few recycling bins. I know when Loch Lomond was in City of Atlanta, when they did ours, we had a recycling bin and a trash bin. Will City of South Fulton ever get 2 recycling bins?
Hopefully so. Again, we're getting this first, just to give you an idea of the volume. We're talking about 40,000 residents. Okay. That's how many transfers. So I'm still dealing with trying to get some of the old cans off the street. Our priority is to try to get Merc miles up, which is our primarily and has historically been our recycling component. I know one of the things that the city is looking at is also looking at another site that would be further south in the city, maybe either in the Oakley Industrial or Old National area. So they are looking at additional options for recycling. I don't know if it will get to curbside. And we want to make sure that we're really recycling, because one of the challenges that we heard even with the City of Atlanta's program was that they was mixing everything together and they weren't really recycling. And a lot of that has to do with the manpower, the labor shortages are impacting some of that. So it's something that I think we'll consider, but our priority right now is to get Merc miles open and to find another alternative recycling center. So again, it's a large city. We don't all have to come to one place. We got to make services convenient.
Okay. Senior facilities. Will we do any? I know they've had a few renovations at QLS. Will we have any additional senior facilities or locations within District 1 as the large district, or maybe partnering with some other districts like 2, 3, 4, 5, having a state-of-the-wide senior facility for our seniors to go to? Real quick.
So this is an education piece. So our city charter tells us what kinds of services the city can provide. Senior services is not one. Okay. Senior services are a function of Fulton County government. And so I know there are some discussions, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a senior facility that's planned for District 3 area. Okay. So I think when you get to that candid conversation, the councilwoman for that area can share more insight into that. But again, Fulton County has been standing up some additional facilities. I think, I think it's in Union City. They just opened up their voting center, centralized. And so, advocacy at that level will be important, because QLS, while they do great work over there, It is not sufficient for the senior population in our city. We recognize that. And so these conversations date back several years as it relates to bringing a senior facility to the city. And like I said, I believe they've already identified a location. I don't know the timeline specifically for where they are in that process.
Okay. And last question, and I think this is a burning question for everyone. Are we expecting any more warehouses? Any more?
So
I know they're not in City of South Fulton. We hear that all
yeah,
the time.
I always have to, as I started my conversation, we're going to have all three. But they're not at risk of coming in your backyard. The city council has not supported anything like that since we've been on council. And that's one of the false narratives that continues to circulate around this city. But if we do anything, it's going to be in the 3 areas that we've designated for that, which is on our future land use map. Food and industrial, it was here before many of us ever came. You have a small section, I think, of Roosevelt Highway, and then you have Oakley Industrial. So those, which is the industrial area, which is way out on 74. So again, they're on the outskirts of our city, and there's no risk of them coming, at least in our footprint. Now, I will say this caveat about this. When you look at our map, you see it's all zigzag down the middle. That property was annexed by Union City before we incorporated. And if you go down South Fulton Parkway, you see all along that parkway, it says Union City. That's where you see warehouses coming online. I truly understand how residents feel, but we don't have authority over the neighboring jurisdiction. And so we know the impact, it does impact our residents, but we're limited in that way. So I want to be clear. And even the one on Stonewall Tail that's right across, I don't remember the name, but it's the back of a Walmart, I believe. The city of South Fulton didn't do that. Your elected officials in this city did not do that. Again, that was part of the annexations that took place prior to. I know that was something that was put out heavily during our last election. The information was not true. Period.
And I appreciate that. However, I think that just lets a segue into, I hope that we can do better with building relationships. And that way, with the elected officials coming in, we're right. I mean, the mayor for Union City has been the mayor for how long now, Vince? So it would have been nice to have that relationship and have that side conversation, because it's just in our community that this has happened. So I know we're not getting on City of South Fulton about that. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up. And the last thing with just the warehouses within itself, what is the plan? I know Coca-Cola moved. So I'm always about, how do we recycle our buildings? Coca-Cola's old warehouse, are they using that? Can another warehouse company use that versus rebuilding? Because it does so much to the environment in the land there. I know they had their old warehouse was over off of, is it Red Oak? Near the Chick-fil-A. They have now the one on City of South Fulton. Just briefly, just a few seconds, and then I'm gonna let Ms. Joyce run off her question. We got 2 minutes. Okay. Yes. You see a lot of reuse of warehouses, and I hope we look at adaptive reuse. In the city of Atlanta, you see warehouses have turned into all flex workspaces, even entertainment and clubs. So it doesn't have to have what you traditionally think about in a warehouse. I can tell you, having visited many of them on Food and Industrial, you would be amazed at the technology and the jobs that are associated with the companies that work along Food and Industrial. For those who don't know, it's the largest industrial base east of the Mississippi River. That's why I said it was here before many of us were here. And so I think what we can do, and one of the things I've done since being in office, I introduced legislation to require large setbacks from the road, so they don't have to be in your face. If you go down Camp Creek and go to the left and look at
the warehouses that have been built, you can barely see them. And they have a lot of landscaping at the road, trying to minimize the aesthetics of it. While they're here, they can look more attractive. And I think there's the opportunity for some that who are obsolete because of the technology in some of the buildings to either reuse them. Many of them, you know, some have looked at taking the roofs off of them so that they can put the automation or the machinery in the building. So, I mean, you see all kind of creative ways that people are trying to deal with old infrastructure.
All right, we're at 8 o'clock. I do want to respect everybody's time. Thank you so much for the citizens who joined us. Just to be respectful, I want Ms. Joyce Gordon to go ahead and ask her question really quick, and then we're going to end and let Councilwoman Dr. Catherine Foster Rowell end us out. Go ahead.
I withdraw my question because of time constraint. I know everybody's on the schedule, but I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Rowell, for very informative session. And the only question I had was, there are two other people that's running against you. And my question to you was going to be, how do you distinguish yourself? And this may be in your summary. How do you distinguish yourself to be the best candidate for District 1 as opposed to the others?
Well, I think it's
I'm gonna say this
no
before you speak.
disrespect.
I'm gonna say this before you speak. Ms. Joyce, thank you for your question, and that's gonna roll us right into the end. So go right ahead, Dr. Rowell.
Since serving 6 years, I have a proven track record. We've talked about many of the accomplishments just on this call. I actually have experience. My master's degree is in urban management, which back in the day, that meant city management. And although I'm serving on this council in a governance role, I do understand city government operations. One of the things that I am proud of is the fact that I do enjoy strong working relationships with a number of the HOAs in the community. Many of them I attend on a regular basis to tune into what residents are interested in and want me to work on. I've focused on that over the last 6 years. I've kept an open door policy, and I do regular communication throughout the district. Not only have I held quarterly town meetings from day one, I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and do the work. So you will find me. I've been cleaning up that Cascade Corridor before I even got elected. I've served in our schools, worked in Fulton County schools, at our neighborhood school at A. Phillip Randolph. And I have a track record that I don't think many people can tout. I'm committed to this community. I love it. And I want us to grow in a way that's balanced and makes sense. We don't want to overdevelop it, but we want to make sure we have the basic things we need in our community. And if you vote for me to be reelected, you can continue to make sure that I continue to be professional and represent you in the most professional way and keep an open door policy. I've had that from day one. And I recognize there have been many things that people have been concerned about, but the reality is I have not been a part of the drama. And I'll leave it right there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rowell. And I'm sure everyone on this call appreciates you taking time out of your schedule to spend this time with us. We know you didn't have to, so we greatly appreciate that. We want to thank everyone that attended this citizens conversation for your participation. I want to remind everyone one more time of, sorry, I got this person and I got to turn the camera off. Again, thank you, everyone. Sorry, I got distracted there. What I want to do is put into the chat to everyone where you can go on the Secretary of State's website. If you're looking for an absentee ballot or you want to find out more information about where you stand, you can go to those two websites and you'll find all the information you need. Early voting runs from October 16th through November 3rd, and Election Day is November 7th. So, Dr. Rowell, 1 minute to just kind of close it out. We thank you again, but we're going to let you take us out.
Again, a vote for me on November 7th, and I'm going to encourage you to early vote, is a vote for experience and integrity. Like I said, I've served from day one. I've been consistent, and I've actually have results. So I think at the end of the day, what my message to voters is, stay engaged, but also take the time to be informed, because I think we can all contribute something to make our city better. We are still a baby. We're 6 years old, just out of the toddler stage. But again, I keep an open door policy. I want to encourage you to take advantage of that. If you have an issue, a pressing concern, reach out. And I think we can work on things together to make the community better.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Yashina, go ahead.
Thank you.
No, I was just gonna say thank you so much. We appreciate you and we appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. I think it went well. And if you wanted to stay on just to see if you had anyone outside, we will cut the recording off and then you can, we'll open up the floor if anyone else had additional questions.
I'll stay as long as I need to.